We have an intro to today's shiur, which the name is a secret. I'm going to tell you shortly. But the intro was discussing Kibbut Avim, because my wonderful parents are here. You'll see them shortly. That the Rambam says that if you want to fulfill the mitzvah properly, it's ke'eved hamishamesh es rabo. Okay. Now, what does that mean? That means you are I don't like to use the word slave, just use it as a full-time attendant who has no other purpose than to serve their master. Okay? That's complete self-negation. And I think for no accident that it's the fifth of the Dibros, because essentially it's showing that that is exactly the relationship to Hashem. Ke'eved hamishamesh es rabo. Which means the thing that doesn't exist is a personal agenda. One is not allowed to have a personal agenda. And if you think to the minute detail of every small action that you take, let's say if you're caring for a parent or in Avodas Hashem, you say, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for my master? Am I doing it for me? Ask yourself. And then you'll see how it's two different ways of thinking. I got to do this. No. Can an Eved say to the master, I've got to do something? There is no such thing as I've got to do something. It's too bad on you. You're an Eved. That's your job, is to make sure they get there, that they have their needs met, and that they're safe, and that they're protected, and that they're well fed. And that is the mitzvah. So the question came up, lahalacha, taking a parent, that mitzvah seriously, could create a situation where you're bringing a parent into your home to live. Very common. And by the way, recommended, because it's a lot better than a nursing home, if you can. I'm not saying nursing homes have their purpose, and there are circumstances in which that is necessary, but ideally not. So what if the wife is not getting along with the mother-in-law? So the halacha brought down in Piskei Tshuvos, is only relevant to the following, is if the mother-in-law is consistently cursing and speaking badly about or negating the wife. In such a circumstance, is the mitzvah of Kibbut Avim more important, or is the mitzvah of Shalom Bayis more important? So it's an interesting answer. The answer is, we have to verify it objectively. Somebody objective has to evaluate the situation and see how bad is this, or is it more imagined than real? You know what I'm saying? There might be feelings there, but is that what's really going on? And if you can have an externally objective evaluation that there is verbal abuse or negation going on towards the wife has every right to say that the parent should leave the house. So that is your answer. The answer is yes, Shalom Bayis ultimately is more important. As it says, Al Ken Yazov Ish Esavi V'imo. But the answer is you've got both obligations. Men have it rough. But both obligations to be Ozev and at the same time to be fully an Eved. That's a Jew. I just want to make an editorial comment before we get to the title of this year. Is that if one really looks around, and you have to constantly look around what's going on around us and learn. It says the world is now in a pitched battle over the issue of rights versus obligations. A Torah Jew, because they're an Eved serving their Rav, thinks about life in terms of what are my obligations. I got to get up today, I got to daven, I have to give tzedakah, I have to do mitzvahs, I have to work on myself, I have to do tshuva, I have to care for my children, I have to care for my parents, I have to make a parnasa so I have to. But that's the simcha shel mitzvah. But b'simcha, I'm serving my master. I love my master. I love my master completely because I don't have any agenda anyway. It's all about my master. The Western world, and particularly the Western world of this decade and generation, think only in terms of rights. What is my right? What do I deserve? Right? Like they have this thing with the Women's Rights March, right? Women's Rights March. So, it's all about my rights. Now, if my rights don't seem to match your rights, then you're out of here, because I have no obligation to you. I have no obligation to include people. So, okay. So, That is the battle, and that's the battle of parenting, and that's the battle of chinuch, and that's the battle of avodat Hashem. Is it about my rights? What do I have a right? I had a couple that was involved with counseling, and sometimes they argue over the toothpaste, clothing the cap of the toothpaste. That happens. Now, in this case, it was about fresh eggs. Fresh eggs. The husband insisted that he eats about 12 eggs a week, and he doesn't want her to buy a tray of 30 eggs because they're not fresh. 18 eggs is fresh. In other words, he'll use up about 12 to 16 eggs a week, and then she'll use some eggs, so we'll have to buy a tray of 18 eggs, not 30 eggs. This was the debate. It was getting, a little testy, a little heated. And he said, it's my right to eat fresh eggs. It's my right. So I said, we don't think of Shalom Bayis in terms of rights. We think in terms of obligation. Yes, you have a right to eat as a human being, Hashem said, but in the context of Shalom Bayis, it is your obligation to make life as simple as possible and keep out of your wife's way in the kitchen as much as possible, because that's her domain. Now, these things Torah teaches, these things Musar teaches, but the world doesn't learn them. And if they're not going to learn from us, who are they going to learn it from? But first we have to master it. So, that brings us to the title of today's Shiur, which is, just in time. Okay. Here we are, right on cue. Welcome, welcome. We've been talking about you.
Yeah.
Dad, I think you're going to, sit next to Mommy. Sit next to Mommy, okay? I think that'll be best, okay? Right, you're going to sit next to Mom right here, and Honey, you can sit wherever you like. See, I don't get involved. Okay, fine. So the title of today's Shiur, after that introduction, that Hashem asks us to be an Eved Bifnei Rabbo, is Paroah and the male flame bowerbird. The male flame bowerbird. You never heard of a male flame bowerbird? Well, neither did I till last night about 3 o'clock in the morning. A male flame bowerbird. Look it up. It's a bird. A bowerbird. B-O-W-E-R. And it's called a male flame bowerbird because, and this comes from the New York Times, so it must be right? It must be accurate, especially since we're in Israel, that it says is a creature of incandescent beauty. The hue of its plumage transitions seamlessly from molten red to sunshine yellow. But that radiance is not enough to attract a mate. When males of most bowerbird species are ready to begin courting, they set about building the structure for which they are named, a bower. It's like a little funnel. It's like a funnel-like thing. They decorate their bowers with colorful objects like flowers, berries, snail shells. Some bowerbirds even arrange the items in their collection from smallest to largest, forming a walkway that makes themselves and their trinkets all the more striking to the female. The operative word here is they're trying to get her eye, her attention. In fact, what they are able to build is, by the way that they know how to space things, can create an optical illusion. So these birds are all about what? Visual, something captivates you, your eye, catches your eye. And that's what their job is. Now, this is what's remarkable about this article. Just listen carefully. And that's why we got the name, right? Paroah and the male flame bowerbird. Well, not really about the article about the male flame bowerbird. This remarkable exhibition is not sufficient to satisfy a female flame bowerbird. The male must react immediately. Staring at the female, his pupils swell and shrink. He creates another optical illusion that I saw this, I checked this out. His eye, the pupil of its eye, goes huge and then it goes small. So what is he doing to her? Hypnotizing her. He hypnotizes her. Optical illusions, large or small. She's looking, what is going on? And then he begins to dance. in a dance that's best described as psychotically sultry. Like a psychotic dance.
This is all in the New York Times.
Yeah, this was in the New York Times, January 9th, 2019, okay? But wait, we'll have to see why it's in the New York Times. Why is what's important. Now, what is this dance? He bobs, he flutters, he puffs his chest, he crouches low and rises slowly, brandishing one wing in front of his head like a magician's cape. Like a magician's cape. He's a magician, a master of optical wonder and illusion. That's what the family. Now, and all of this, and then he convulses the whole body like a wind-up alarm clock. And then, if the female approves, they will have a union that lasts approximately 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Oh, and they will never meet again.
Did you say 3 seconds? Yeah.
3 seconds. All of that, months of preparation, remarkable show. I mean, you could pay money for that, right? That would go over big on Broadway. And the whole thing for 3 seconds. And never again to be together. Never to see each other again. So what's the problem with that? Darwin. It seems that this runs counter to the principles of Darwinism, whose job is to explain evolution. The theory of evolution, based on what? Utility. Utility. In other words, this is how it says, this extravagance, it's extravagant. It seems to be just a most beautiful display of nature that goes far beyond the 2 or 3 seconds that it's all about. It's an affront to the rules of natural selection, says the writer from the New York Times named Ferris Jabber. Speculate where they're from. Adaptations are meant to be useful, according to Darwin. That's the whole point. And the most successful creatures should be the ones best adapted to their particular environments. So what is the evolutionary justification for the bowerbirds' ostentatious display? Not only do the bowerbirds' colorful feathers and elaborate constructions lack obvious value outside courtship, so much for love, but they also hinder their survival and general being, draining precious calories, and also making them more notable to what? Predators and competitors, mind you. Now, numerous species, they say, have conspicuous, metabolically costly, and physically burdensome ornaments. Okay? From peacock spiders to birds of paradise. So now we have a problem. Why? How do you explain this according to the theory of evolution? How do you think they explained it? Did they say, well, okay, so now that brings us to Paroah and to our other friends that appear in Parshas B'Shalach at the very beginning and at the end, and that is Amalek. The denial of reality was the problem of Paroah and Amalek. They refused to see the obvious. What is the obvious answer to this bowerbird dilemma for the evolutionary scientist? Which is like a 20-page article. And the whole article goes on to say that this is an adaptation because this is how they find their mate, so that's how they adapted that way. Excuse me? It runs, and there's one Meshuggah scientist that's running around, and you know what? It blew my mind also. I said, this guy, his name is Prum. She follows this guy around. He says he's an academic. He went to Harvard, and he studied 100,000 dead birds. And they sent him to study all over the world. I said, there's money for this guy to devote his life to standing in a field and look for a bird. And what about for Torah? What about for Mostos? What about for buildings? What about for Klal Yisrael? What about for security for Klal Yisrael? Oh, no money there, right? But for this, there's money, all the money in the world. And what did he come up with? This is evolution. What could be the other obvious? What's the other obvious alternative? Marabu Masecha Hashem. Right? The Shiur, what do they call it? The Shira song, the Shiur of all the animals. Perek Shira. Perek Shira. This beauty, this brilliance, this ability to create in a bird, in a little bird, for what? For 3 seconds worth of a relationship? Marabu Masecha Hashem. Hashem shows us beauty, courtship, even love, devotion. It's his obligation to do all this. Can you imagine? A huge obligation. Why? To fulfill the word of his master who created him. It's like you go 360 degrees around in a circle and you turn your back on the answer that's right behind you. That is the reality of the New York Times Magazine. Anything and everything. So you know they have these taglines today in the politicians. Never this, never that. Right? Like they say, never Trump. Anything but. This is the tagline. Never God. Never God. That is really the title of what we're talking about. Anything but to believe in Hashem. Anything, any plausible or improbable argument. That was Paro. Paro said, any which way that I can begin to explain this other than the Yad Hashem is what I'm going to do. What does Paro mean? Paro means Orpah, turning your back, turning your neck away. That's exactly right. Turning your neck away from Hashem. Now, the beginning of Parshas Bashalach. Hashem did not want to take Klal Yisrael a certain way, the direct path to Eretz Yisrael. Why not? Now, it's called Derech Eretz Plishtim, right? Plishtim. Those are the people who live there. That's actually, according to the biblical map, that's where they lived. All that, Gaza, that whole area, which is the way up from, it's like today, the Rafiach crossing. You go from Gaza into Egypt. That's exactly the road. They're not going to take them there. But Rashi adds something here, very interesting. He says, what does it mean, Derech Eretz Plishtim? Derech Eretz Plishtim says Rashi, Pen Yinachem Ha'am Berosa Milchama V'Shavu Mitzrayim. He doesn't say Milchama with the Plishtim. He just says the word what? Milchama. Which Milchama? Right? Says Rashi, Milchemes Vayered Ha'amaleki V'Haknani. Kigon. Milchemes Vayered Ha'amaleki. He gives the example of, the first example that Rashi gives is Milchemes Amalek. What does the parsha end with? Milchemes Amalek, bookend. So this parsha, B'Shalach, is bookended by the notion of Amalek. Now, what do we know about Amalek? Many things. What's the mashal of when Amalek is allowed to torment the Jewish people? What does Rashi give us a mashal in this week's parsha? About the what? So what does that mean, lack belief? What was the example given? About a boy who's riding on, Medrash gives us an example of a boy riding on the shoulders of his father. He says to his father, give me this. He bends down and picks up and gives him this. Give me that. He bends down. And then he says, then he sees somebody coming his way and he says, have you seen my father? And the father says, Abazoi, tosses him down, and the Kelev comes and bites him. Who is Amalek? The Kelev, right? He might also be the guy that comes his way. I'd like to homiletically add. There's two characters in that story. The guy that comes their way and the dog. Amalek plays two roles. Is both the seducer to not believe in Hashem, the person that approaches, to whom the question is asked, where's my father? Because that person presents a challenge and a danger and a fear or a disbelief. And then Amalek comes around and bites us. At first, they're not going to bite us. At first, they're trying to influence us. They'll talk to us nicely. What do you need? What do you need to believe in your Father in heaven for? We have all these wonderful, wonderful explanations. And then afterwards, the real Sinas Yisrael can come out. But that's their job. That is their job. That's what Amalek's job is. And ultimately, it's serving Hashem. Why? Why is it a service to Hashem? Why is this Satan a servant of Hashem? What is Hashem's will when we lose our connection to belief? That we should be brought back. And if we're not brought back by ourselves, then we need, quote unquote, gentle reminder or not so gentle reminder that we have to go back, that it's time to go back to Hashem. Okay? So the Parsha is transitioning between Paro and Amalek, which are really very much the same concept. Paro refused to believe, Amalek refuses to believe. That is the point. Okay. Now, let's go back into the issue of Eved. And of course, the opposite reality is when we are serving Hashem, when we consider ourselves Eved Hashem, then Hashem will pick up whatever we want. Right? You need this, I'll pick you up this. You need that, I'll pick you up that. Hashem will come to our support. Okay. Now, let's just understand a little bit more deeply. I want to develop this idea for you. Let's go to the Melchemek Amalek that happened at the end of this week's Parsha, right? What was the story over there? Who leads the battle? Who leads the battle against Amalek at the end of the Parsha? Yoshua. Why not Moshe? Question number one. Why not Moshe? Question number one. Question number two. How did Moshe, what was Moshe's role in this battle? What was Moshe's role in this battle? So here's what it says. Rifidim again is considered rafui, as they dropped Torah, they dropped their level of emunah. Immediately, who comes Amalek? Moshe el Yoshua bachar lanu anashim. Rashi points out bachar lanu means for you and me. That Yeshua, you're my partner in this war. Ma pitom. Everything until now, what? Yeshua had a role in the Makos? Aaron, we understand, was a partner to Moshe. That we understand. But Yehoshua? What role did Yeshua have to do with the Makos? All of a sudden comes Amalek, the next problem after Kriyas Yamsuf, the next serious threat. And all of a sudden Yeshua is a partner to Moshe. Why? Okay. Thank you. Hold on to that for a second. Yoshua is the paradigm of the going against Amalek. Hold on to that. Okay, but another question. What does Moshe himself do? He goes, Save hilachem ba'Amalek. Say the Meforshim, go out of the Anan HaKavod. Go out of the Anan HaKavod. What happens when you go out of the Anan HaKavod? You get smashed, you get killed. Why in the world? You should have said to Yoshua, go with the Anan HaKavod and attack Amalek. Isn't that the purpose of the Anan HaKavod? To go ahead of us and destroy our enemies? What in the world does it mean to go out of the Anan HaKavod? Say. That's suicide. Then, Machar. Let's do this battle when? Why tomorrow? Why not right now? They're coming. They're in a war. He goes, spend the night, gathering people, then go out and fight them tomorrow. When you're in a war, you don't say, okay, we'll call up the army tomorrow. They're coming. They're coming. All right. Now, what does Moshe do? Anochi nitzav al rosh hagiv'ah. Umata Elohim biyadi. I'm going to sit on top and watch the war. What, are you going to buy a ticket? So it's like, I'm going to buy a matinee ticket to watch this war from the best seats. And you know what I'm going to have with me? The Mat Elohim biyadi. Is that being a question for you? If Moshe has the Mat Elohim biyado, then what question do we have? Why don't you use it? If it had enough power in it, right? To conduct all of the 10 plagues, right? And split the Yamsuf. And then in the beginning of the parsha, split this huge rock. Because it said it was made out of What precious stone? Sanpirin, which is sapphire. What color is sapphire? Blue. Blood is blue. Remind us of sky. It's like tchelis. It's like a tchelis blue. And it smashed the rock and brought water of a rock, which is completely impossible. And now all of a sudden, when Amalek comes, you're standing there and holding it. Do something! One wave, and Amalek will disintegrate. Or be flooded, like the Mitzrayim. Do something. What's going on over here? And then, does Yeshua ask these very good questions? Like, Rabbi, why do I have to leave down on a kavod? Why aren't you coming with me? Why don't you use your mata? Doesn't ask any questions. Vayas Yoshua kasher amar lo Moshe lilachem ba'Amalek u'Moshe va'Aaron v'Chur alu l'rosh hagiva. Now, why are Moshe, Aaron, and Chur there? What is the job of Aaron and Chur in this particular case? Why Moshe Rabbeinu, who fought Paroah, who eventually would single-handedly kill the greatest giant of his era, who was whom? Og Melech HaBashan. By holding his staff, he was 10 amos tall. He was a giant of a human being, and he had physical prowess. He could jump 10 amos. Be a really good basketball player, Lahavdil, today. Would have gotten a major contract. He needs help to hold his hands up. Chazal tell us, because he refused to do the Milchama himself. He sent Yehoshua, so now you relied on others, you're going to have to rely on others now. Now, which two others? Aaron, I understand. And who is Hur? Miriam's son. So who is he really relying on? Aaron and Miriam. Okay. And then comes what the Mishnah Rosh Hashanah describes is really an impossible thing to understand. V'haya kasher yarim Moshe yado v'gavar Yisrael. As Moshe's hands go up, they're winning the war. Moshe's hands go down, v'gavar Amalek. Amalek wins the war. What does that mean? And it was such a hard war that he sits down on the rock and their whole Aaron and Hur tamku biyadav mizeh echad u'mizeh echad. And from here we learn a halacha, that when there's a fast day, like Kol Nidre, right? The Chazan stands there, and what's all around him? Does he go up by himself to sing Kol Nidre? All the Torahs. We learn from here that you have to have others involved. You have to need the other support on all sides. And then it says, did Yoshua win the war ultimately? Did he win the war? Did he beat them decisively? No. It says, Vayachalosh Yoshua Amalek ves amo lefi charev. He weakened Amalek. It means he won, but it was a little bit chalash. Okay? It was a little bit chalash. What do we make of all this?
It's a continuous thing.
And that's what the pasuk says. What does the pasuk say? Then the pasuk goes on to say, Ksov zos zikaron b'sefer. Hashem tells him, write it down. V'sim be'ozne Yehoshua, and put it into the ear of Yoshua. Put it into the ear of Yoshua. Whose ear should it be put into? All of Klal Yisrael. Why into Yoshua's ear? Ki macho emche et zecher Amalek mitachas hashamayim. I will erase Amalek from under the heavens. And then Moshe does another strange thing. He builds a mizbeach. What did he build a mizbeach for? We just had a war. Move on. Vayiven Moshe mizbeach vayikra shmo Hashem nisi. Hashem is my miracle. And then Hashem says, Ki yad al keis ka milchama l'Hashem b'Amalek midor v'dor. The word case is really short for what? Kisei. And ka is short for Yud Kei Vav Kei. What does that mean? That this story is far from over. It's really just the beginning of a long war to restore the name of Hashem and the Kisei of Malchus. So, but really, what is going on over here? Why couldn't this be a one wave of the Mata, and they should be incinerated? Okay. So the answer is this. There will be times when the Jews fall out of the Anon HaKavod. When they fall out of Emunah B'Hashem. when they are fallen to sin, and they are not worthy of that level of divine protection, either because they're disconnected. We'll see in the Abir Yaakov what that disconnection specifically means. And Moshe said, I'm not going to be around at that time to wave my mata and make open miracles for you. Remember we said in last week's parsha, last week when we learned, is that there's the parsha of Va'era, and then there's the parsha of Bo. Va'era, the hidden hand of Hashem, right? We go talk to Paro. And now, in this past week's parsha, we go and inflict nisim, miracles, right? It says, Asara nisim nasa lavoseinu b'Mitzrayim. There were 10 miracles that were given. Miracles. What are miracles? Miracles were the opposite of the makos. The fact that they didn't have the makos, they got miracles instead. So that was miraculous. Now we are transitioning. We're out of Mitzrayim. We're past Kriyas Yamsuf, right? Even though there's still going to be a lot of nisim in the midbar, but ideally, the Jewish people are now able to manage a little bit more on their own. So I'm going to give Yehoshua the opportunity to carry on, because Yehoshua is not necessarily, although he did merit miracles. What miracle did Yehoshua have the minute he entered Eretz Yisrael? Shemesh Givon Dome. He stopped the sun. And also, what happened at that time? What came down from the sky that was part of the Makos in Mitzrayim? The Barad. Yeah, the Barad comes down for him. And then also, he crosses the Yarden miraculously, the same exact way that Moshe crossed the Yam Suf. So yes, but why? Because Yoshua is the paradigm of what? Eved Meshamesh es Rabo. Why? What is it? How do you know that he didn't leave Moshe even for a second? What does it say? The Yomosh Mipi Oel. He didn't leave Moshe's side and say, I'm busy, Moshe. I got to take care of a few things. I got a couple things to take care of. There were no things to take care of. He says, that is what's going to get us past Amalek. We're not going to get past Amalek at any time. Till Mashiach, unless we transform ourselves into Yehoshuas and Kalevs. Where does Kalev sneak in here, by the way? Where does Kalev sneak in here? Who is the father of Hur? Who's the father of Hur? Kalev, get it? Kalev and Miriam. So here you have Yoshua and Kalev. Where else are they really important? They are the only two of the 12 spies, right? That believe that Hashem will be with them enough. Once they're out of the Anan HaKavod, the Anan HaKavod went away once they got to the border of Eretz Yisrael. What stopped falling from the sky the minute that they got that close? The man stops falling. No more miracles, daily miracles, open miracles every day. Stop. Now you have to take that and go forward into a world of a little bit more Hester Panim. But you can schlep the Nisim with him. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu makes a Mizbeach. And he says Hashem Nisi. The full name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. When you fall into Amalek, you cut off Hashem. I'm telling you, says Klal Yisrael, you can do this. Build your Mizbeach wherever you are, and you can bring me, Moshe Rabbeinu, and my miracles, not openly necessarily,